everybody. Thank you so much for joining our podcast, Moms on the Move. I'm Jen Wills.
And I'm Ashley Steigerwald.
We have Deborah Hawkins with us again.
Yay!
Thanks for coming. This is our part 2.
Yes.
Part 1 and 2 are unrelated.
Totally unrelated.
Completely unrelated. So if you caught the first one, it was about, women, resilience. And this second part series is about sexuality and your children.
Yes. Yes.
So your son couldn't make it.
Yes.
He was supposed to come and he was sick. So his name is David Hawkins, and he has a podcast here also.
Yes, he does. We're all like
So
it's the podcast family.
Yeah,
Keeping the lights
yours
on in
is
the building.
Golden's Guide to Divorce.
Mine just launched yesterday. Golden's Guide to Divorce.
So check that out.
Check that out. Yes.
And then David has My PR Lab.
Yes.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you'll just speak, on obviously behalf, but you've been very involved because your son is gay.
Right.
And you have a whole story.
We do, actually, and for, most people in Greenville, if you could imagine raising a gay child 35 years ago in Greenville, actually we lived in Easley at the time, it was quite difficult and I would say brutal for David growing up in a small, very small conservative town. And I think the fact that he started noticing pretty early on, and for whatever reason, other people seemed to suspect because he didn't, want to play sports as much, or he wanted to hang out with girls more and that kind of thing. And it was really sad because when he was very young, it started with, 5 years old or something, he would come home because, kids can be so cruel.
Even at 5?
At 5, he would come home and he would be like, Mom, people are calling me fag. What does that mean?
At 5?
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
And so I was so lost and out of my element. I mean, I really had to do as much education as I could. Obviously to support him, but to support me too. And, and I know it's a different time now, but I think for a lot of parents, you don't really want to, sometimes you don't really want to believe your kid's gay. Especially back then.
Yeah.
I mean, I was,
and
the church and the,
it
was very looked down upon, and, it was shameful, and a lot of people would get thrown out of the church, and so it was a really difficult experience growing up. And back then, 30-something years ago, there really wasn't that much support when he was younger. However, when he got to be more in the teen years, we got more involved in PFLAG, and I spoke at PFLAG a lot, and that helped me a lot.
What is that?
Parents and families of gay and lesbian children. Of course, now it's expanded, into transgender, and but yeah, back then when kids were really, really young, even the teachers didn't know how to handle it.
Well, and I think too, it's as a parent, you were saying but the universal feeling I think would be you don't want anything to be harder on your child than you already know it's going to be when they're in their teenage years. I mean, when they get older, there's more of an acceptance and knowing who you are, but there's some years that are tough for even what I would consider the easiest of paths. So for that reason, I think there's a lot of parents that probably have reached out to you, how to navigate.
Yes, I've talked with a lot of parents, a lot of families, a lot of therapists, a lot of churches, in helping really explore it as adults and how we can support our children. Because as adults, as we all know, as moms, one of the first things that we might do is take it on and go, did I do something wrong? And I've heard that from a lot of parents. Did I, was I going through a divorce, and was I too over? I mean, back then, 30 years ago, we would take it on that way. Not so much now, of course, but and what I tell parents now and what I told parents then is that if they suspect their child is, or if their child is questioning, for the parents to get support first so they can really understand how to support their child, because that's
Mhm.
key.
So, yeah, like we talked this week, and obviously, like, your son's not here, but I told her, I said, "What if I say the wrong thing or ask the wrong?" And she said,
No,
"No, I think that's an important conversation.
no.
That's
Yeah.
part of it
That's what
because you're
people don't
trying to say you're not trying to be."
Mhm.
or people don't have the conversations because they're afraid of saying the wrong thing or
Mhm.
they're and for me I think it's important to we're all trying our best and you may not say the exact right words or use the right pronouns or mess up, but if we're having these conversations, that's a step in the right direction.
Amen. And I want to
Mhm.
thank y'all so much for
Yeah.
doing this, because even though I'm not as active out in the world as I was, I mean, now he is, he's a man,
He can advocate for
Mhm.
himself.
well,
Yes.
and he's very solid in who he
Mhm.
is. But I do think it's because a lot of the work we did early on, because I still know of many people who are in their 30s and 40s and 50s that don't feel they can come out.
Mhm.
So I've always said it's still the elephant in the room.
Mhm.
Maybe not as many, but for most people, I mean, heck, I always said, our parents didn't even know how to talk about the birds and the bees. How in the world were they going to
So
talk about
true.
our
Birds and birds and bees and bees.
yeah, sexuality?
Yeah.
Although I do think it's gotten a lot better,
Yeah.
and there is, a lot more for families. But I'm so glad y'all are bringing this up, and I would invite parents that are thinking or questioning, or maybe like for me, I really suspected David might have been gay at 3,
Mhm.
and that was my intuition.
Mhm.
It was sometimes the way he wanted to play with dolls, and he really wasn't interested in. And I know that's kind of generalizing,
Yeah.
but
You
it was
knew. You
everything.
knew.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
and and so what I have told parents is that, when if they are questioning when they're super young, to get themselves aligned in case they decide that they are,
Mhm.
bisexual, gay, transgender, because when they're very young like that, I encourage parents to just let them be who they are, because just because a kid wants to play with dolls, a boy,
Mhm.
doesn't mean
Right.
anything, right?
Yep.
And that's kind of what happened. I mean, we didn't really have the conversation until David was about 12,
Mhm.
and then he began really asking questions. And that's when we had very serious conversations, and when I knew that I needed to get educated and really strong for him.
But
Mhm.
that's an important point that he felt comfortable talking to you about
Yeah.
it.
Hmm.
So there was something you were doing at home to create that atmosphere where he could come and have those conversations.
Hmm.
Whereas I feel there's a lot of kids out there who don't even know where to begin. And so, or they feel like they can't have that conversation at home. So even if your child isn't LGBTQ plus IA, if that, we need to be advocates, we need to be the safe
Yes,
adults
yes.
for those who can't talk to their parents about
And
it.
absolutely. And I worked with the Trevor Project as a Trevor author for many years, in just that arena where that's a safe place for children to call in. It's called the Trevor Project, and you can find it online. And it's a free number for children. Well, I think it may be teens up to 20. But they'll help any child that calls in that might be questioning and feels like it's not safe to talk about it at home, because I've seen that over and over. And many times I was talking with children. I remember, I'll never forget it, this one young girl, and because of their religion, incredibly strong background um, in religion, and I don't necessarily need to say which one, but um, she was so distraught about not being able to say anything and how they talked about it being so bad within the household and the church.
Mhm.
She had started cutting herself.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we don't have any idea what we're doing when we begin to shut down our children and their deepest feelings of who they
Because they
are.
still need to let it out.
Let it
So,
out.
I like I can't say any names, obviously, but it's someone I'm close to. I always suspected too, um, and he didn't feel comfortable coming out until recently.
hmm
But now that he has, you can just see this weight.
People, well, I mean, David for sure. I mean, I think when he was 16 was when he decided he was, we had the conversations between 12 and 16
Hmm.
within our household and supported him um and I still encouraged him, to be with girls, to date girls, you're not being sexual, so you don't have to decide what you are, you
Yeah.
know. And but when he came to me at 16 and said, "God, I really like this guy,"
Hmm.
and that was when we pretty much knew.
Hmm.
And but I think it's like anything, when you keep a secret inside, it eats you up. And I can remember there was a talk that I used to do years and years ago. I did it at many churches, and it was called Coming Out Heals. And, coming out, and that's really about anything. I mean, if you hold a secret in, it does eat away at you. And
Hmm.
it's really difficult to think that you can't share who you really are at your core with the people you love.
Because we're pack animals. We
Hmm.
need that community, and almost everyone, has that sense of needing to feel loved, needing to be belonging. That sense of belonging. Just think about, why don't people speak up for themselves? They're worried about being rejected,
Hmm.
so we all have that innate need, and when you fear if I tell somebody who I really am at my core, they are no longer going to love me or include me
hmm
anymore. That's devastating.
It
It's
is.
devastating
It
to
is.
think that. Um,
Well, and if you have been already treated a certain way,
Hmm.
it takes a lot of strength and courage and support, to fully come out.
Yeah.
And but I mean, even for me, the reason I think it's so important for parents to get their own support is because as a parent, you do like, I can remember I grieved, I
Hmm.
cried because it was not necessarily just because he was gay, but because of the dream that I had for him, that I was going to have the daughter-in-law and the 1.5
Yes.
kids at
Right.
Christmas.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it was my dream for him.
Hmm.
And that's okay for
Right.
parents to recognize and let go and grieve their own dream that they have for their children and let them have their
Hmm.
own.
Right.
That's a big part of the process that many parents, I don't think, follow through with. And then sometimes they can be passive aggressive with the kids,
Well,
or
I'm sure. I mean, but I'm sure men kind of have a
men do have a hard time.
harder
And
time.
my experience and my research,
Hmm.
um, especially, guys are generally taught to be macho
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
don't cry and, be a man. And I have found that men have it harder. When I used to get thousands of emails, and the majority of the ones were moms writing in the middle of the night and saying, I believe that my child is, but my husband's never going to accept it.
Hmm.
And those were the hardest letters to write, but I mean, to answer. But the biggest ones again were when we get solid in our children being who they are,
Hmm.
they get solid,
Yeah.
you know.
Hmm. Of course.
And people just seem to naturally align with it. even, partners in a marriage. I've seen that happen a lot.
Okay.
Like if one of the parents goes, okay, well, this is what we got. This is what we've got to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we got to get educated. If one partner will kind of take the reins and move through their fears of it and then get solid, then the family,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, and the brothers and sisters and,
Right.
yeah.
Is there certain things that you would recommend saying or opening that conversation or dialogue, or do you wait until, you know,
I think, when children are, even if you're suspecting very young 5 or 6 years old, I personally, in my experience, don't recommend having that other than telling children it's okay to love whoever you love
mm-hmm.
and maybe having that conversation, sometimes two men love each other, sometimes two women love each other, sometimes a man and a woman loves each other. Beginning, if you feel like they want to know, then, setting up that structure, that's okay to love whoever you love, which
Mm-hmm.
somehow plants a seed in them that I, I could be. I could be any one of those and be okay.
Right.
I would suggest, though, probably not having, unless the child is asking,
Mm-hmm.
probably wait until, adolescent, and then begin having those conversations. And of course, the most wonderful gift we can give our children is it doesn't matter to me who you love. I'm
I'm
always
always
gonna
going to love
love
you.
you,
Right.
because
Right.
I think one of the reasons David is incredibly outgoing and loves people and loves what he does and was because I think together we worked really hard on him, me being that support and saying it doesn't matter what. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you are supported. You know, I know that you may get bullied out there, which bullying can happen for many reasons,
Right.
and it's kind of the same thing. As a parent, you have to get really solid in how you can support them. And when I keep saying support, one of the things I want to talk about is, sorry if I'm jumping
No,
Oh,
around,
go
no,
for
you're
it.
because
good.
this is something that I'm
Uh-huh.
so passionate about because I know it can really hurt parents and it can break families up. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've
Yes.
seen it,
Mm-hmm.
the grandmother says, "Oh no, they can't come to the wedding with their partner," or Christmas, or
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
crazy, some of the stories. But when David was young, when he was having so many issues at school with the bullying and the teachers really didn't do anything. It didn't matter how many times we went down there and
Mm-hmm.
complained. Um, I began to realize that school was the most toxic place for him.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt it was my job to find as many other outlets as possible for David to feel great about himself
Mm-hmm.
and to feel like he was contributing and winning in some
Mm-hmm.
way,
Included and
included and had
welcome.
friends. And so we explored the arts, of course,
Mm-hmm.
and theater. He got involved in community theater and the swim team. And he even showed llamas.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
like he would show horses or whatever. I mean, and he was great
That's
at it,
That's
hilarious.
awesome.
And there were a lot of kids who showed llamas that were,
Showed
wanted to do
llamas.
something a little bit different. But and I pride myself on being willing to just keep finding those outlets for him to expand
Mm-hmm.
because school was tough.
Yeah.
It
I
was
think it's
just
like
tough.
really important what you just said. Like, because again, you have a vision for what you want. And, you know, usually it's going to be following in your footsteps in some way, playing the sports and doing this.
Mhm.
And it's hard for parents to accept, I think, even if even if it's just I don't like playing sports. I think that's
Mhm.
even hard. It's just that parents have an idea
You do.
and you need to let go because they're gonna be there in person, and that's
Well,
the healthiest thing.
absolutely. And we all want to put that sticker on the back of our van that says, I'm a proud
Mhm.
parent of a, whatever. But yeah, there's just so much more to encouraging our children to be who they really are
Mhm.
so that they really can contribute in the world
Mhm.
and that they're not going to end up in therapy for, ever and
Yeah.
ever. I mean,
Right.
we probably all end up in
Yeah,
therapy,
We
right?
should.
But
We should. Maintenance
Yeah.
is important, but
yeah, I
Yeah.
worry about people who don't go to therapy.
Yeah.
But and that's another thing. I mean, at some point, we did do some therapy 30 something years ago, you know. But it you do whatever you can, to
Mhm.
really help your children. And I was so surprised when I worked with the Trevor Project and Sylvia's house in New York. David and I spent a lot of time at the homeless shelter in New York City, um, for kids that were under 18, and they had at that time, I mean, they had the highest suicide rate and also the highest homeless rate because there were parents that would just throw them out, couldn't accept them. The religion was what was too important, or they got too much pressure from that.
Mhm.
So it's really hard to believe, but
Mhm.
I've seen thousands of children. And what I used to tell parents that were really struggling with was your children are going to find validation somewhere.
Yep.
Yes.
You
Yes.
had rather it be you
Yes.
It's so
than
true.
somebody who's going to encourage drugs or
Mhm.
prostitution or running away or
Yep.
and
That's so or like a partner that's
exactly
very
Abusive
yeah,
yeah,
or
or
yeah.
abusive.
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, of course.
Yep.
So but it does go back I always go back to the parent getting all that support because I can remember, and David will tell you he never saw me cry because I cried, but it was in private because
Mhm.
maybe I didn't know what to do, or he was hurting so bad I didn't know how
Mhm.
to make the bullying stop, and or just the fact that he would be like, Mom, I just want friends, why won't they play with me?
Mhm.
And but I did all that in private and got my own support and therapy so that
Mhm.
I could be that alignment that he needed. That's
Yeah.
that structure, that
Mhm.
support.
And
Yeah.
so he now like thinks that was important.
Yes.
Just okay.
Yeah. He
Mhm.
says, I never saw my mom cry a tear or anything.
Mhm.
And I did. I did. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, I can remember the first time he had a date. I guess he was 16 or 17, and they were coming over, and I was going, what are the neighbors going to think if they kiss on the stoop? You know,
Right. Right. Right.
what is my boss going to think? What's the church going to think? Blah, blah, all those things.
Mhm.
And this is one thing, parents, and I understand sometimes we make it about us
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep.
because our children are sometimes they're a projection of us and we want them to be out there shining and being perfect and the world validating them in every
Mhm.
way, and we have to get ourselves in
Yep.
check
Yep.
on that. And so I remember that night laying there, and they had gone upstairs to play pool. Oh, it was so awkward. We were sitting in the living room and, we had dinner and, I was struggling through conversation,
Yeah.
because if it had been a little girl sitting there, I would have been like,
Being
fine.
able yeah.
Right. And so we got through. I was trying so hard. I was probably being awkward as heck. And then they went upstairs to play pool, and I went in the bedroom, and at some point I heard them coming down, um and I really did have that in my stomach, like, oh, I wonder if they're kissing on the porch. I
Yeah.
wonder if anybody's gonna see. But yeah, as a parent, don't think that you don't have to process all your own stuff.
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
and the more you do it, the better you do it, the more support you get, the more you're going to be for your child, you know.
Better relationship because
Of
it's building
course.
trust.
Of course.
Mhm.
And that was the one thing too. Back then, 30 years ago, I mean, it wasn't surprising to hear of people who would do what they thought parents thought was the right thing or the culture of the church, get married, you know. And I knew many people, especially guys who got married that were gay, and then you know later on it was a big
Yeah.
family mess up, you
Mhm.
know, when they did get a divorce. And it was hard for the children, it was hard for the wife. And all I knew was I never wanted David to not be who he was.
The pain of living that
Yeah.
long
That's a
unauthentically.
lot. Ooh,
You
yeah.
know,
It
to
it
to
it
to
c-
yeah.
it causes alcoholism, drug addiction. I mean, when you're suppressing so much of who you are and just basically living a lie,
Mhm.
and it happens to thousands of people, I'm sure even now. I still work with people who are older, um, that you know want to come out, but maybe don't know how to tell their 70-year-old parents, or you know. But I'm always of the belief, you know, to encourage that dialogue, because I think if you could have the conversation before your parent passes, that you can share, or your family, that you can share who you really are,
Mhm.
the relief that comes is huge.
Right.
It's
Right.
huge. Yeah.
And again, even if it's not your own kid, it's educating yourself to be that ally. You know,
Yes.
I'm in
Yes.
scouting, and I had a young, well, a 20-something-year-old who was involved in scouting as a youth, and we had a conversation about this, and he said, you could do something as simple as in your email signature, put she, her.
Yes.
Because if you put your pronouns, it opens it up then to say, I'm accepting of whatever pronouns you would like me to use. And then it can then open a conversation for somebody who may not feel comfortable. Something as simple as
I
two words
love
in an
that.
email signature. Um,
You are so right on that. I mean, it's really the small, subtle
yeah.
things, for children and young adults, or anyone for that matter, in this day and age, to feel comfortable to show up as who they are.
Mhm.
Because in the end, I mean, we all know what happens when you suppress and suppress and
Mhm.
suppress. You know,
Yeah.
it's never going to be a good
You
ending.
don't want that for your kids.
No, no.
No,
Yeah.
and that what you just said is really important, because we talk about like
Mhm.
the vision you have for your kid's life, and the work it took you to realize, I'm making this about me and not about their experience. And we all want our kids to be happy, and
Yes.
by making it difficult, or by not doing the work to accept them, you're asking them to live inauthentically or to hide part of themselves from you. And that sounds like such a
Oh,
sad
yeah.
way to live
Well, and we're doing it. We're asking them to do that
for
so we
us.
can feel
That's
better.
exactly,
Yes.
or that we look a certain way to certain
Yeah,
Exactly.
people.
look
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
who matters more? This person at church's opinion, or grandma's opinion, or your child?
Hmm.
Mhm.
What matters more?
And you know, it's surprising. It surprised us. It probably wasn't until David was in his early 20s that we told his grandmother, which he's very close with. And I mean, we were shocked. I mean, she handled it pretty
Do you think
good.
she probably knew though?
Maybe, but I
Yeah.
also think that by then he and I were so
Mhm.
solid in it.
Yeah.
And that's one thing too I want to say again, so the audience can really get this, is that I learned through trial and error. In the beginning, when I would go out and maybe something might come up about David, or um, people would talk about it. If I was wobbly,
Yes.
Mhm.
then I almost set myself up for attack, or not
Mhm.
attack, but really strong opinions.
Mhm.
But the stronger I got in, I really could care less who he kisses, you
Mhm.
know, or marries, or he is David, you
Yeah.
know. The stronger I got with that, I noticed that when I would meet people, even strangers, you know, I've had plenty of conversations with Baptist preachers that were, you know,
Mhm.
really against it. And I noticed when I came from that place, people were way more somehow open to listening.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the conviction,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure.
So yeah, that's where,
Well-
parents, if you're questioning, please make sure that you do your own work.
Yeah.
It's really, really important. More than people think, because
Yeah.
there are a lot of parents that say, "Oh, sure, I'm okay with it," but I can almost guarantee
Mm-hmm.
every parent, even if it's, well, I did kind of want that, family I was,
Yeah.
I had pictured in my mind or
Right.
whatever, or
Just
or I was
something.
kind of hoping they'd go hunting with me, or I don't know,
Yeah.
whatever,
Something.
we do project onto our kids what we're really,
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
our vision of perfect.
I hope this helps some people. I
hope
mean,
so.
I do. You were just so open and great, and I can't wait to meet David.
Yes, well, he will have his own stories.
Yeah.
And anyone that meets David doesn't forget him. So yes, I hope y'all get to meet David too. But I do want to say, if y'all have any questions, or if you're concerned, or if you need a conversation about it, or want to send an email, if you feel like I might could answer any questions,
Mhm.
you can reach me at Deborah at DeborahHawkins.com. You can go to DeborahHawkins.com, and I'd be happy to support anyone. As you can tell, this is really my heartstring
Yeah.
work,
Yeah.
Right.
and I've always done this just because I think the greatest gift we can ever give our children, the greatest spiritual gift, really, is accepting who they are.
Mhm.
Yes.
Well, thank you
Yes,
so much.
thank you.
Thanks so
welcome.
much. I really appreciate this. That was a good conversation. Yeah.
Good.
You're going to do so good on your podcast.
Oh, thank you.
You are. But we want to also thank our sponsors. So thank you to Wilson Associates. If anyone is looking to buy or sell,
Especially if you want to sell.
We are lacking inventory.
Yeah. If you want to sell, you're going to be everybody's new best friend.
Call us first. Also, Parham, Smith, and Archenhold. They're attorneys in Greenville. They are wonderful, and they also own Blackacre Closing Attorneys.
Yes.
So they're great too. We just
Yes.
closed with them. And anyone else?
Fairway.
Oh goodness, yes, our title sponsor, Lisa
Yay!
Johnson at Fairway Mortgage. We just had lunch, so she is wonderful. She is like so responsive and on top of things. So
Interest rates are still so low.
they are.
Lock
They are.
your
So,
interest rate
it
in.
might be tough to find a house, but at
If you
least the
can find
interest
one,
rate
it'll-
will be low or refinancing.
That's true. Oh, everybody's refinancing right now.
Mhm.
So
Anyway.
yeah, if you've got some equity in your house, or if you're, if you took out a loan at above 4%, now is absolutely the time to
Yeah.
refinance. So they've been getting it done quick. Even with everything that's going on in the market, a 30-day refi, cash in your pocket, fix up your house. Summer's
Mhm.
coming, put in your pool.
Yeah.
Refi right now. It's a good time.
Well, thank you again for everyone's support and the sponsors. We couldn't do this without you.
Yes.
And we look forward to seeing you next time.